What's going on? So for today's video, I'm going to be doing more of like a sit-down video and kind of like giving an overall recap on how I felt about 2020. I've done this video before for like 2019, 2018, 2017. So this year it's going to be like pretty much my opinion on 2020 and how I felt about the year. If you guys haven't checked out last year's video, feel free to check that video out, and the 2018 one and 2017 one as well. My overall opinion on 2020 is that there were some good things and some bad things about this year. I feel like with 2020, it was like definitely the best summer that I've had, and I got to do like so many crazy things and got to go to so many places and film a lot of videos and went back to the Smoky Mountains and all that and had a really enjoyable summer. But I feel like with the rest of the year, it just wasn't really the best. I'm gonna be real, especially fall. Like I feel like this was definitely one of the worst falls I've had. My birthday was really good though, and probably the best birthday I had because I ended up not going to school on my birthday and I got to spend the whole day at Grove Lodge, so it was probably one of the best birthdays I've had, probably the best birthday I had. I would say my worst month this year was definitely November. I ended up having to like take a break throughout pretty much most of November, except for maybe like the first week of November. And it may have been almost as bad as November 2018. If you guys seen the 2018 recap video, I didn't like November that year either, and I feel like this November was comparable to November 2018, which was not a good month for me. And July was probably my favorite month because of all the stuff that I got to do and me going to the Smoky Mountains and filming all those videos. Definitely probably one of my favorite vacations I've ever been on and made so many memories and all that. So now I'm going to be kind of going over some of the highlights in 2020 and like some of the bad things in 2020. So I'm going to be starting off with some of the highlights I had this year. First major highlight I kind of already talked about, Smoky Mountains and everything that I got to do there. Another highlight that I had this year was doing my first major cliff jump, and if you guys haven't seen some of those videos, feel free to check them out. I ended up filming like 3 different videos where I went to Kincaid Lake and did the 50-foot cliff jump and had a lot of good memories filming at that place. Another highlight that I had this year was doing skydiving, and definitely like one of the most memorable days of 2020. I think if I had to pick any day that I liked the most in 2020 was the day that I went skydiving, because I ended up going cliff jumping later that day too, and I'm planning to go back and do it next year as well, so stay tuned for that. And probably my favorite video that I filmed, so if you guys haven't checked out that video, feel free to check that video out. I'm going to be leaving a link to that video in the description. And the last major highlight that I would say that I had this year was whenever I did the Tennessee day trip and went out to Tennessee for today. So basically I'm going to kind of go over like pretty much everything that happened that day. So I ended up waking at 3:30 in the morning, which is insanely early. I was extremely tired whenever I woke up, but once I got there, I went to this first park and kind of did like a hiking trail, and towards the end I saw this really nice waterfall. I didn't like go down there and explore much of it, but whenever I went to the second place, I actually like went swimming close to the waterfall and got to like kind of explore it more. And I saw like another miniature waterfall as well at the second place, and then after that I left and went to like the main waterfall that I was planning to see that day, and I ended up going like swimming really close to the waterfall, and it was pretty strong, so definitely a memorable experience. I really enjoyed visiting that waterfall. I think that one was probably my favorite one that I visited. At the last minute I ended up going like maybe 30 minutes towards Georgia and ended up seeing a 4th waterfall there. It was definitely a crazy experience and definitely one of the most memorable days of 2020, and I ended up getting back home around like 3:30 in the morning, so it was like pretty much a full 24 hours of just me like seeing waterfalls and all that. So I would say that was definitely a highlight in 2020, and I might do another video where I explore more places in Tennessee whenever I go back there in 2021. I also might be revisiting some of my favorite waterfalls, so stay tuned for that next summer. So that was basically the major highlights of 2020. So now I'm going to be kind of going into some of the not so good stuff about 2020. The first bad thing about 2020 for me was pretty much the whole virus and everything that happened with that, and I ended up like not being able to work for like 2 months, and things were just really stressful, especially like towards the middle end of March. I mean, I ended up turning it into a positive experience because I ended up doing a lot more hiking, and I ended up getting to do online school. I was still in high school at the beginning of 2020, and I felt like it was a lot easier than in person. I was spending a lot less time doing school, so it allowed me to do more hikes, and I also didn't have to like worry about going other places as well because like pretty much everything was shut down. But I ended up seeing this new park that I haven't seen before that wasn't too far from my house, and I ended up making my most viral video 2020 there, and it ended up hitting like over 1.1K views. It allowed me to have free time and all that, so I was pretty grateful for that. Still wasn't like the best thing that happened, but I ended up making the most of it. So that was kind of like the first bad thing in 2020. Another bad thing that happened in 2020 for me is I ended up losing a lot of friends this year, especially after the summer. That's another reason why fall this year was definitely not the best for me, because I ended up losing a lot of friends over fall and all that. So it's like the opposite of spring. Like in spring, I had like a whole bunch of free time, and then fall, it's like I almost have no free time and no motivation to film. Other than those two things, I can't say there was like anything else bad about this year. I would say like those are like the main bad things that happened for me this year. I mean, they're pretty big though, and that's kind of like a reason why 2020 wasn't my favorite year, despite it being like the best summer that I've had. So at the end of the 2019 recap video, I ended up making like a couple goals that I had for 2020. So I'm gonna be kind of going over which goals I met and which goals I haven't met. And I also want to let everyone know who's watching this video, if you did not meet your goals for 2020, don't feel bad at all, because this year was definitely a weird year and definitely like a lot of stuff happened. It's really, really stressful year for a lot of people. I'm pretty blessed for how this year turned out for me, because it could have been a lot worse for me, because a lot of people ended up having like the worst year of their lives. I wouldn't say this was like the worst year of my life, but not the best either. I'm pretty grateful for how it turned out for me, because I feel like my 2020, even though it wasn't the best year, it was definitely a lot better than it was for like a lot of other people. So I did want to throw that out. If you did not meet like all your goals this year, don't feel bad at all, because this was just a crazy year. Hopefully 2021 will be better. I don't know how things are going to turn out yet, but hopefully that will be a better year for people, and hopefully for you guys watching this video. I hope 2021 is a better year for you guys than this year. Just want to say that. So now I'm going to be going over like which goals I met this year and which goals I didn't meet. So some of the goals that I did meet this year was uploading more videos. In 2019, I was kind of slacking and I didn't really upload that much, but I feel like I definitely met that goal this year, despite me taking the break in November and January and February, me kind of starting off slow and all that. So once April came here, I ended up uploading like every 5 days. In May, it was like every 4 days, and then June, I went down to every 3 days, and I did take a little bit of a break while I was in the Smoky Mountains, but after the Smoky Mountains, I was uploading like every other day for like a month and a half, so I would say I definitely met the goal of uploading more videos. Another goal that I kind of somewhat met this year was traveling a lot more than I did in 2019. I'm not talking about like traveling out of state too much, but I'm talking about like going to more places, and most of them were kind of like around Missouri, Illinois. I ended up finding ways to still be able to like go places despite everything going on. And the last main goal that I met this year was doing what makes me happy, because I did like go out and film a lot more videos and ended up doing like a lot more hikes and going outdoors to a lot new places and exploring a lot new places, and that kind of stuff really makes me happy and all that. I felt like I was doing a lot more things that made me happy this year than I did last year, so I would say I still met the goal. So now I'm going to be going over the goals that I didn't meet this year. So the first goal that I didn't meet this year, this one's kind of a hard one. Basically the story is earlier like this year and around this time last year, I was able to do backflip on ground, and I was like doing that every single day. In March, I kind of like stopped doing it and lost my ability to do it, so I didn't meet that goal, and I didn't get to make the video where I did every single day for a year and had that uploaded last month in November. I'm gonna be completely honest, another thing that I did not meet this year was positivity, but I feel like I'm not the only one who didn't meet this goal this year, especially with like everything going on and just like this year being kind of a hard year. It was kind of like hard for a lot of other people to meet that goal as well. If you guys didn't meet that goal, don't feel bad. So for the last part of this video, I'm going to be doing like a recap of each month and like the major things that happened each month this year for me. So in January, I ended up turning 18 and ended up going to Great Wolf Lodge for the weekend, and actually got to be at Great Wolf Lodge for my birthday for the whole day. Ended up having a lot of fun with that. I ended up going to Maristar and celebrating New Year's there, and watch like all the balloons drop and all that. And then I also ended up doing like a backflip in front of Ameristar 2 at the end. Other than Great Wolf Lodge, I would say January was kind of like one of those months where much didn't really happen for me. February wasn't really the craziest month for me either. I felt like it was like less crazy than January, to be honest. I would say out of the months this year, February was kind of like the month where the least stuff happened for me, but definitely a good month for me, like focusing on myself. Main things that happened in March. So at the very beginning of the month, I ended up losing my ability to do backflip on ground, and I feel like March was definitely not my favorite month, and that's like when things with the virus started like kind of going out of control, and I feel like things were definitely changing for me, and I feel like March was definitely like one of the loneliest times for me because of everything going on, and I just felt like really unmotivated to do anything in March, and I feel like March everything kind of like went downhill. But things did get better in April. I ended up having a lot more time to like film videos, go on hikes. I didn't have to worry about school as much. Was turning a negative situation into a positive. It still could have been a little bit better. And kind of like towards the end of April, that's kind of like when I did my first ever drive somewhere an hour and a half from where I live. That was like the first ever long drive that I did. I would say May, things were definitely starting to get uphill and we were getting like closer to summer. And I feel like things were opening up more in May, and May was also like when I kind of started to do like more adventures even more than April. I would say June was whenever the summer adventures definitely started to skyrocket. Ended up going to this other place called Castor River Shut-ins where I did like the cliff jumping in the shallow water and all that. And June was also the month that I got the Hero 8, and that was like the first ever camera that I bought fully by myself. I ended up spending like over $500 on the camera if you include like all the accessories and all that. So that was definitely a big achievement that happened for me in June. So basically a recap on July. Definitely my favorite month this year. First thing that I did was I ended up going to Jellystone and ended up spending like one night there. It was on a Tuesday night through Wednesday, and I still ended up filming 3 different videos for Jellystone despite only being there one night, and definitely stepped it up from any other Jellystone trip that I did. And pretty much the main thing that happened in July, and it was definitely the most memorable time for me of 2020, was whenever I went to Smoky Mountains and did everything there. I went ziplining and saw like 12 different waterfalls. I even did tubing and all that. I even saw like black bears like 4 days in a row. So definitely the craziest vacation I've ever been on, and one of my favorite vacations I've ever been on before. Throughout the like first half of August, I ended up going to a lot of places with like natural springs and all that, and I ended up getting to go swimming in one as well, and I had a lot of fun like exploring all these like little small parks and all that. And first half of August was whenever I did the 40-foot cliff jump at Johnson Shut-ins, and was the first time that I did like an actual cliff jump before. And then also in August was whenever I did the Tennessee day trip, and also like towards like the end of August was whenever I did my first ever 50-foot cliff jump. It was the first time that I ever did like a 40-foot cliff jump and a 50-foot cliff jump in the same month. So I would definitely say like August was another crazy month for me, and definitely another month that I enjoyed this year. September was also a really good month for me, and ended up still continuing to do a lot of crazy stuff. I feel like it was like the last good month that I had this year, and probably the only good month I had in fall. Although September this year definitely felt more like summer throughout the whole month. I didn't really feel like fall happened until October this year. So basically the first Friday of September I ended up going skydiving, and definitely it was a crazy experience. And then later that day I ended up going cliff jumping. September was definitely the month where I went to Kincaid Lake more than any other month. I went like almost every single weekend there. Maybe not as good as August and July, but I still really enjoyed September and everything that I got to do. So now October. So I would say it wasn't quite the worst month yet, but definitely when things started to go downhill, and definitely started doing a lot less adventures, and was when I kind of started to lose motivation to film videos. Also, things were getting a lot more busy for me with school and work, and I was kind of starting to lose friends a little bit in October, but not as much as I did in November. Now I'm going to be going over pretty much everything that did happen in November 2020. I would definitely say it was the worst month of 2020 for me, and not a month that I really like to remember too much. That was like the month when I was starting to lose a lot of friends, and definitely when I started to feel a lot more lonely, and I feel like things were getting even more stressful than they were in October, and school was getting even harder in November for me. And it's definitely the most stress and loneliness that I felt throughout the year 2020, and definitely not my favorite month. But there were a couple of good things that did happen in November. I did get to go back to Babbler, and I jumped off the house and all that, and I ended up going back to St. Louis and filmed a video there, and I actually ended up hitting 100 subscribers in November. Like, I think it was November 18th that I hit 100 subscribers. It was the day that I went to St. Louis and filmed a video there. That was when I hit 100 subscribers. So that was like one good thing that did happen in 2020 for me. Other than that, November was just not been my month, and I would say December also was not the best month for me. I felt like it was worse than October, but it was also a little bit better than November was. It's definitely been like a really lonely month for me, and my first semester did end in December, like a week ago. So I mean, that did help a little bit with like the stress, but still kind of a stressful month for me, especially with like Christmas. That's basically a recap of every month of 2020. So now I'm gonna be kind of going over some of my goals I have for 2021. The first main goal that I set for myself is to continue to upload more videos, kind of like I did in 2020. Like, my goal is to kind of like maintain and upload as much as I kind of did this year. My next main goal for 2021 is to go even harder with the summer adventures than I did this year. Like, do even more than I did this year with the summer adventures, and maybe I'll even step it up and like do a 60-foot cliff jump. Another goal that I have for 2021 is to at least do skydiving again at least once next year, and maybe even 2 times next year. Another goal that I have is like working towards positivity and working towards my dreams and continuing to do what makes me happy. This year was definitely not my best year when it came to positivity, other than maybe the summertime. My goal for 2021 is to hopefully like work on positivity, and then I also want to like work towards my dreams and stay motivated and continuing to do things that make me happy, like the summer adventures and hiking. So that's my last main goal for 2021. So that's basically a recap on 2020 for me and how things turned out. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope you guys enjoy your New Year's Eve and enjoy New Year's. I also hope you guys enjoyed your Christmas as well. Subscribe and keep my post notifications on and see what we do next. And without further ado, this is pretty much it for 2020, and I will see you guys again in 2021. Peace out.